Okay, welcome to the February 2021 General Meeting of the Dayton Microcomputer Association. My name is Peter Hess. I'm the DMA's current Vice President and Programs Chair. It has been my pleasure for more than 2 years to open our monthly general meetings for the entertainment, enjoyment, and enlightenment of our members and guests. Since we have a guest from outside of our organization, as a courtesy to our speaker, we will begin this monthly general meeting with our presentation instead of our organization's announcements. Organization announcements, tech news, and member door prizes will follow today's presentation. Please let us know how you feel about this change through our Contact Us form on our website page, dma1.org/contact-us. If you are not yet a member, to begin your annual membership, please print a membership application form from our website and mail it to us along with a check for only $25. Now that's less expensive for 1 year's membership than it costs to be a member of the NRA. And I guarantee nobody in our organization is getting $1,000 suits paid for by our organization. By supporting the DMA, we can continue to do what we do. And trust me, that is much more than what is obvious. As I said earlier, there'll be more news and announcements at the end of our presentation. If you have any technology news or organization announcements, please Zoom chat to me and I will make sure that you get recognized. I prefer that people, in addition to yours truly, will be talking about industry and our organization's news. So I don't want to do all the talking. And that goes for question and answer at the end too. Please ask questions. Although if you're really bashful, send me a chat and I'll try to get to it while our speaker's online. He's going to have to leave us at about 8:30. In about a week, a recording of this meeting will be posted on our YouTube channel. And today's presentation is about solar technology. The solar industry has been around for many years. The technology continually evolving, along with the cost persistently dropping. This month's presentation will take a fresh look at what is available right now. Jim HELTON, an energy consultant and sales leader for Solgen Power in Cincinnati, will talk about the newest technology and the feasibility of home solar power. His presentation will talk about how a solar system works, how cost-effective it is for the homeowner, and the steps involved in the installation process. Battery backups versus grid-tied systems will be covered, as well as net metering. Many would also be interested to know that solar increases the value of your home. And I'm sure Jim is going to give us some other financial benefits of solar too. In addition to his work at Solgen, Jim HELTON is a co-founder of the Tri-State Freethinkers. He organized the March for Science in Cincinnati. He is an activist and environmentalist whose activities landed him in several documentaries, including a cameo in the movie Bill Nye, the Science Guy. And Jim, you're on.
All right, thank you, Peter. Appreciate you having me on. I'm thrilled to talk about solar with you. I'm going to go over some of the reasons people go solar. What are some of the main reasons? I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I don't have to wait till the end. As I go through different sections and we talk about different things, I'll pause to answer questions about what I just talked about. The only ask that I have is keep the questions to the topic that we're on. I'll probably get to your other questions on later slides if that's okay. So to get started with this, there's multiple reasons people go solar, and one of the aspects is ownership. This is a pretty easy concept to understand. Just like people buy a home versus rent, they would prefer to own their power. When you bought your home and you chose your power company, you probably didn't have a choice. They told you this is your choice, and that's what you went with. With solar, you can produce your own power. You can also prevent rate increases. I don't know if you've looked around at your utility bills, but I don't like to speak in absolutes. But the one thing is, it's a pretty safe bet. Your utility bill goes up every year. Would you agree? I haven't seen them go down. So people like that energy independence. They can budget easier with fixed payments. So that is one of the advantages to solar versus renting your power. If you look at your bill, because of the area we're in, half of your bill comes from generating power. Depending on where you'll be, it may be nuclear, it may be natural gas. We're in coal country here, so that's where a lot of our energy comes from, which is dirty. Hopefully one day it'll be renewable energy, solar and wind. There is some of that around here, not near enough. But that's only half of your bill. If you look at your other half of your bill, it is in taxes, fees, transmissions. It basically doubles your bill. It's a very inefficient system to get it to your home. My favorite fee on your bill, if anyone has one handy, is on most bills, there's an environmental surcharge. And if you want to know what that is, that's where the utilities are charging you a surcharge for them polluting. It's usually around 13% of your bill. That is my favorite one to see, okay? By putting solar on your home, that is the source where you're consuming. It's much more energy efficient. It's much more environmentally friendly, and just, you know, overall makes common sense. The best example I can give is on the argument for solar is this example, okay? Now, I'm going to show my age here, or maybe my youth, but when I started driving, gas prices were around 80, 85 cents a gallon, okay? I'm sure for some of you, that might be slightly different, but we're going to use my example. If I was 16 years old, or imagine you're 16 years old, gas prices are 85 cents a gallon, and someone would come to you and say, hey, I'm going to give you a gas card. It's going to cost $1 per gallon for the rest of your life. You'll never have to pay more than $1 per gallon. Keep in mind, when you're 16, 17, 18, maybe even 19, you would have paid more for gas. But over the long haul, how much money would you have saved if you would have locked in that gas price for the rest of your life at $1 per gallon? Do we have any math geeks that want to do the math on that real quick? It's in the thousands. I can't even calculate the amount of money you would save. Solar works the same way. Even if, and I'm not saying solar is more expensive, sometimes it is, to be honest, sometimes it's cheaper. You know, it just depends on the house, and I'll get into that. But even if your solar payment is more, it's going to save you potentially tens of thousands of dollars because it's a fixed payment that's never going to go up. The only difference between solar and that gas card example that I gave you is I said $1 per gallon for the rest of your life. Solar's not for the rest of your life. Eventually, solar will be paid for, and you won't be paying anything. Okay? Any questions as far as that goes before I move on? All right, that's so far so good.
Don't see any hands.
This is my favorite slide that I personally added to our slides, and this is my hard sell to people. If this doesn't convince you to go solar, I got nothing. And if the print's small and you can't read it, I'll just read it to you. To save money, the Kentucky Coal Museum turns to solar panels. Museum installs 80 solar panels. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to hear that conversation for the Coal Museum, and then just going, we realize it saves us money, but can we really do this? I talked to a guy who wrote his whole college paper on this exact thing. I was like, when COVID's over, I'm taking you to lunch. I need stories. This to me is just amazing. And I've literally told people, if this doesn't convince you, I got nothing. There's nothing else I can say. This is all I got, really. And it usually creates a good laugh with this, okay? I usually save that for the end in closing. I normally don't share that. From an environmental impact, one of the neat things, like when I tell people their energy bills go up every year, no one's surprised by that, right? Everybody's like, oh yeah, we got it. You know, we know our bills go up. We know they're high. Duke Energy asked for a 17% increase here in Northern Kentucky this year. They were granted 9%. But when it comes to the environment, if I would ask you what your carbon footprint is for your home, I don't think anybody could tell me. I would be surprised. Very few people can. You know, we flick our lights on, right? The light comes on, the computer comes on. This is what's happening at this power plant to make that happen. We don't think about it, but it happens. The interesting thing, though, is there are people that go solar that don't care about the environment at all. I'm like, does the environment play an important part of the decision? They're like, no, I don't believe in climate change. Don't care. I'm like, okay. And I skip this slide. The interesting thing, though, is even they may not care about the environment, it's still helping the environment whether they want it to or not. So I don't argue with them, okay? I have this strong belief, though, and call me crazy, I do think water, air, those things are kind of important. Maybe we should take care of them. You know, I have kids, would like them to have clean water, clean air, you know, some basics. Don't think this should be too controversial, I would hope. But it's normally a slide I don't talk about either way. When I'm out into the field, I don't talk about the environment. I ask them if it's important. If they say no, I skip it. If they say yes, I usually ask them why it's important to them. So when I'm out in the field, this is the longest I've ever talked about the environment. People usually talk to me about it, of why that's important. But to no surprise, you know, solar power is 94 to 90% lower carbon footprint than natural gas or coal. I don't think that's going to shock anybody, you know, on here tonight as far as the environmental impact. But it's really neat. When you look at a small home, a carbon footprint on a real small home with one person living in it is still usually over 1 ton of carbon. You get into a larger home or a family, a large family, we're seeing 5, 6, sometimes 7 tons of carbon saved per year by going solar and just offsetting part of their bill. To put that, so if you have a hard time knowing how much 7 tons of carbon is, the average car emission is about 4 tons of carbon a year. So you're basically taking a car off the road every 4 tons of carbon. That is the impact of going solar. And then you do that over 20 years, 5 tons, that's over 100 tons of carbon. Even if the people move, the house still has solar, it's still long lasting and producing that from the environmental standpoint. So I heard you guys like to get a little technical. You're more on the technical side of some of the things. So I'm going to explain to you kind of how solar works and some of the different options to solar and what to look for, okay? The first part is the sun hits the panels, right? Pretty simple. It creates DC electric. We're going to convert that DC electric to AC electric to power your home. There are 2 main types of ways we do this, okay? Some companies will use a string inverter, okay? And it costs a little bit less to do so, and they'll do a string inverter with 1 box at the end, okay? So you can save money by doing a string inverter. The only problem, I would say the downside to that string is if one goes out, they all go out. You're creating a single point of failure, okay? They're pretty reliable, so that's usually not too big of a concern, but it's there. The other option is you can do micro inverters underneath the panels themselves. There are a couple advantages to the micro inverters is each panel will operate in pairs or individually. So if one goes out, they don't all go out. Also with the micro inverters, as the sun sets over the panels, they don't operate as a unit. So if some are getting shade, the other ones will still fully produce, okay? If they're operating as a unit, usually the unit is at the least efficient panel, okay? A lot of companies do this, not just us. They'll provide you an app for the solar, so you can actually see where your power is being generated from. A lot of customers are able to save money just by realizing where their power is being generated. For example, my 2 favorite examples are, I had a husband and wife. They had this 30-year-old antique freezer in their garage that the wife was always complaining about. And he's like, and they used it once a year during the holidays. And once they hooked up their solar, they saw how much juice that thing was sucking. That thing was gone in 30 days. That thing was out of there. Like, you're surprised at how much energy you're using, okay? But you actually get to see that. Any questions on how solar works, the panels themselves? Okay, so far so good. Also, when you're looking at panels, some people get into the weeds on panels, okay? And there's various different companies that make them and you can get them from. Most of them are made overseas. A lot of them are assembled here in the US, but the parts come from all over. What you really want to look for is a tier 1 panel. As long as you purchase a tier 1 panel, you're in good shape. You can argue which one's better and they all have its slight advantages and disadvantages. But as long as you're looking at a tier 1 panel, you're going to be safe. That's basically like saying this is A plus, this is good. Anything below that, I think you'll be sorry. It's kind of subpar, older technology, it has issues. So as long as you're choosing a tier 1 panel, you know, some people will have their preferences on brands, but if you go tier 1 panel, you're going to be safe. A lot of the warranties are 20 to 25 years on the panels, and they're designed to last over 40 years. Okay. I can't speak to all panels, but I'll give you an example. Most of them, even after 25 years, are usually operating at an 80+% efficiency. Okay. If it's a tier 1 panel, most of them are operating at 80+ efficiency. If it drops below that at 25 years, most warranties will kick in to replace those panels. Okay. Us personally, we passively monitor the system every month. So if we see it dip below, it should only have a degradation of 0.55 on the panels we use. And if it dips below that, we'll contact the customer and go take a look at it. And if it's below that, we'll replace it. Okay. As far as maintenance goes on the panels, that is a big thing. Everybody's like, what is the maintenance? What am I going to have to do? Out west, we do have a maintenance schedule we recommend people stick to. Okay. In the Midwest, we technically still say it, but it's not as important. Out west, we recommend around every 3 or 4 years, you take a hose to the panel to get the dust off. Here in the Midwest, we get some pollen that may build up on them, but guess what it does every spring? It rains, and it rains hard. So odds are you're probably never going to have to do anything to your panels, ever. There is no maintenance. You know, we do recommend you do glance at it just in case you're under, you know, near some trees, or just look at it just in case, but odds are you're not going to have to do anything. Okay. All right. Any questions about the panels before I move on?
Yeah, I got a question. I saw since I had met and talked with Bill Nye, the science guy, one of his neighbors and he have a rivalry on who can have the lowest carbon footprint. And so I saw something on TV, a TV show, where they were talking to the neighbor, and and he's an actor, and I forget his name. But anyway, at the time during the interview, he was cleaning off with what looked to me like a floor duster. He was cleaning off his solar panels. And it sounded like he needed to do it more than, you know, once a year. Is rinsing them off as good?
Yeah, so I can't speak to some of the older panels, you know, but the newer ones are glass, they're tilted, they're slick, things just roll right off of them, at least the newer panels we use, and you don't have to do much to it. Now, if you're out west in the desert, you're going to get more dust buildup, but like here, it just rains, and it rains hard and all the time. Things just don't build up. It just rolls right off of them. You know, if you have a flat roof or an older panel, you know, with some of the older technology, you might need to keep those clean for more efficiency purposes. But the newer panels here, you know, you just don't have to do that. Like I said, we're telling every 4 years, and every 4 years we're telling you, you're probably not even going to do that, at least here. You know, out in Arizona, I haven't talked to the reps out there to say, hey, are you telling them absolutely in 3 to 4 years? You know, they might change that a little bit based on where you live, but here it's just not an issue at all. And with the newer panels, they're glass, they're slick. That's just not too much of an issue.
I have a lot of trees around my house, and occasionally branches or something falls off the trees. I assume it's branches. And it's a loud noise on the roof when I'm inside. Is there a concern about that, like a branch hitting a solar panel and breaking it?
So, you know, a branch hitting the solar panel, it's just going to probably bounce right off and roll off. Now, that's for the average branch. You know, you get some of these huge trees that are towering above, just like if it's going to enough to damage your roof severely, then it's probably enough to damage the panel. But if it's just going to bounce off the roof, the panels are really durable. They can handle hail. They can handle a lot of things. You know, someone goes, well, what if a tornado comes? I'm like, well, your house will be gone. You won't be worried about the panels that much. Like, that would be the least of your concern. You know, if at that point, let's say you do have a huge tree that comes in and wipes out 2 panels, right? That's just covered under your insurance. You don't have to insure your panels anything special. It's not like a diamond ring or an antique thing. It does increase the value of your home, which we'll talk about. So for the average system, your insurance should go up about $20 a year, maybe 40, okay? If it goes up way more than that, you contact me and I'll get you a better insurance agent, okay? But it should be a very minor thing that it goes up, okay?
Okay. Thank you. I don't see any hands up. By the way,
Okay.
anybody has any questions, feel free to raise a hand and
We get
I'll
the net,
call on you.
yeah, we get the net metering is probably when we're going to get into some confusion. As an asset value, this adds value to the day you put it on your home, okay? There's multiple ways people calculate this. We personally use a hybrid of all these, but here's some of the formulas they use. Some people will use a percentage of your home. When you're out west in California, the average home is 600,000. Using a percentage works pretty good. Here, homes cost quite a bit less. We take the price of home in consideration, but I don't feel like percentage is the best way to, do that solely. You can also calculate it per dollar saved on your bill, but that's fairly complex to do and requires a lot of math most people aren't going to do at a quick of a whim. You can also base it on the size of the system, okay? Per kilowatt, you can get 3,000, some people say 4,000 or 5,000 per kilowatt. There will come to a point though, your system becomes so big that you're not going to get that full value for. In this area, the average home is $15,000 to $20,000. If you have a small system, it might be less than that. If you have a bigger system and a bigger home, it could easily be above that. But most homes are 15 to 20 grand. And no matter how you calculate this, everybody pretty much agrees it adds value to your home the day you put it on. And according to Zillow, homes that have solar sell 20% faster. I mean, think about it. If you're looking at two identical homes on the street, one has a huge energy bill and one virtually has none, or even half the bill, which one would you prefer? And I saw somebody had their hands up if they had a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, hey, when you mount the solar panels on the rails, what size, how big is the gap from the roof for cooling?
How big is the gap from the panels to the roof?
Inches to the roof. Should you have allowed for cooling?
There is a gap on there. I have a video to show you that. I don't know what the exact inches are, but it's in inches. They're pretty low profile. They're pretty close to the roof, but I don't know what it is inches wise.
Then how do you locate the rafters? Because you want to attach the rails to the rafters.
So we don't attach the rails to the rafters. What we do is we install a plate. It is a square plate that we drill in, and then we attach a rail system to the plates and then attach the panels to the rails.
Yeah, see, I was just going to take galvanized rail, U-rail, and mount it on some weather-treated wood and hook it to the rafters and then mount the panels on the rail. And then hook them all up and seal.
I got a video of it. I can show you, which I'll get to at the end, which might help you look at that. But we personally don't put the rails directly onto the roof.
I don't see any hands. Go right ahead. Go.
So this is probably the most complicated part of net metering. And if I ask the customer, do you know what net metering is? Have you ever heard of it? If they say no, I'm like, good, I'm starting with a blank slate. If they've heard of this, they've probably heard something different. And if you ask the entire room, which we won't have time for, and ask them to explain net metering, I'd probably get 20 different answers. And there's a reason for that. One, it's a little complicated. Two, every single state legislates this differently. Kentucky is different than Ohio, which is different than Indiana, which is different than California. And depending on when you installed solar, the state changes it every so many years because they get lobbied by the utility company. So if you're talking to your neighbor who put it in 5 years ago, they may have a very different agreement than you do. Okay? So it gets fairly complex and it creates a lot of confusion in the marketplace. Okay? So here's how net metering works, and I'll try to explain this as simply as I can. During the day, when the sun is out, if you have a meter, you'll literally see it spinning backwards. It's a pretty cool thing. If you have a digital meter, it will literally count down backwards, okay? During the night, it's gonna spin back forward, okay? If it spins forward further than it spun backwards, you're gonna get a bill for If, however, it spun forward and not near as much as it spun backward, you're going to get a credit, okay? And the way Ohio works is you get dollar for dollar credit for any energy you produce that month, Okay. So let me repeat that again. You get dollar for dollar credit for any extra energy you produce that month. However, what makes Ohio kind of unique is a hybrid. At the end of the month, they're going to cash you out and assign a dollar value to any extra energy you have at the end of the month. But they're going to do it for pennies on the dollar. They're going to buy it back at whatever they would buy it back from their wholesaler or supplier. Okay. In Kentucky, they give you dollar for dollar credit, but it carries over to the entire year. So it just carries over. So you're never getting pennies on the dollar. The disadvantage to Kentucky is they're never going to cut you a check. Okay. And I think Peter asked me a question, how would I do this legislation? Well, let me tell you what's happening. The reason Ohio does that is you overproduce. Let me get to this next slide and then I'll talk about the legislation. This will be a little bit better understanding. So if you look at the average home that we do solar, now your home may not be average, it may be different than this, and they are, but starting around springtime, okay? Starting around spring, most of our customers don't have a bill, meaning your solar will produce enough to wipe out that bill. In summer, most of our homes overproduce. Not only are you not going to have a bill through the summer, you're going to produce extra energy to offset your winter bill. Come back to fall, you're usually producing enough energy so that you can offset your fall bill. Okay, depending on the angle of your roof, how much sun it's getting, there are so many factors involved on this. Like, even if I have all the information, there's no way I can calculate this. We need an engineer to calculate what the offset and what that'll be. We may be able to offset some to the majority of your winter bill. Okay, you're most likely, it is super rare to be able to wipe out your bill even in the winter in the Midwest. I've seen it happen a couple times, but it's rare. I do have a solution to this where customers ask me, Jim, what is the best way to wipe out my bill year round? I have two excellent solutions, and I would just ask you this. How do you feel about Hawaii or the desert? Either one of those solves that problem. Here, you're going to probably have a bill, okay? I mean, that is just the way it is. The problem with Ohio's bill, where they're giving you dollar for dollar, okay, and then buy wholesale, they know in the summer you're overproducing, and they don't want to carry that over the winter. That way, you're not getting as much credit. That's why they do that. Ohio will also limit you to the size of the system. We can only put so big of a system so you're not overproducing too much, okay? And in Kentucky, we can build as big of a system as we want, but we're never going to get any money for it, so it doesn't benefit you to put too many panels on. Okay, even in Ohio, because they're buying it back for pennies on the dollar. And this legislation is always to benefit the utility company. In Kentucky, last January 2020, they passed a bill to allow the utility companies to change net metering. I was there at the hearing. I was disgusted at the lies, misinformation, lobbying that the coal plants, the utility companies were spewing to the politicians, Democrats and Republicans alike. They did whatever their donors told them, and they agreed to change the law. Now, COVID happened. We had an election. Our country kind of got turned upside down the last year. So that got pushed back. But we know once things get back to normal, they're going to pass that. They're going to pass what the change is. And what most likely is going to be is they're going to want to buy back the energy for pennies on the dollar, not dollar for dollar. Okay. We see this happening state after state where net metering gets worse and worse as they change it in the utility's favor, not in the consumer's favor. The good news is, if you do install solar and you sign it, you usually, depending on your state, sign a 25-year agreement on your net metering and you're grandfathered in. So as they change these things, you're immune to it for the most part. Okay. And the utility companies can't change it without a state legislation. The state legislates this. So if you want solar, the utility company can't deny you, like they have to take it. It is a state, it is regulated by the state. Okay.
Jim, I got a question about local municipalities.
Okay.
For instance, I live in Kettering. I can't put a big 6-foot wide satellite dish in my yard.
Correct.
They just won't let me do that in Kettering,
Mhm.
Ohio. Okay. Now I've seen them in Kentucky, so I know you could do it in Kentucky, but in some areas, at least in Kentucky. Are there any local municipality or local city ordinances against any other
Solar?
restrictions? Yeah, solar.
So excellent question. So I don't want to speak in absolutes because there might be some weird city or weird county somewhere that I'm unaware of. But for the most part, that is not regulated by the city, county, state. They're all for it. That's not an issue. Where you run into an issue is in homeowners associations. You'll have a specific subdivision with a book like mine of your grass can't be more than 1/4 of an inch. You can't put a shed detached. They have all these rules. The more rules they have, the more problems you're going to have. And so that it's not so much on a city county level, it's usually per subdivision. And the bigger the homeowners association, usually the more trouble you're going to run into.
Yeah.
The one thing, and I know some companies you're on your own, the one thing we do is when we do the plans design, we submit it to the homeowners and get the approval. And if we can't get it, then we don't move forward. But we do that on behalf of the customer. Like, hey, you got a homeowners, like in my subdivision, it's going on right now. I called, I built a house. I said, hey, do you have any restrictions against solar? They said, no. Great. I built my house. I go to put on solar and I find out my neighbor just got denied to put solar. And I'm like, why? He's like, oh, they didn't like it. Like what? He's like, oh, the president of the homeowner association didn't like the looks of it. I'm like, that's not a bylaw. Like, that's not a thing. And so now, well, they told me no. And I'm like, well, I'll get involved and we'll take care of it. It'll be a process. But it's usually homeowner association. So when we call, we're like, do you have a homeowner association? You say no, we're like, yippee. You say yes, we're like, it's going to take a little longer. But once you usually get 1 or 2 in there, they've already done it. The first one's the problem. But once you got one, usually the next ones are pretty easy. Okay. Any other questions on that?
No, I don't see any other hands up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you asked me a question, Peter, before we got started was, if I was to write the law, what would it be? If I was to write legislation, I would encourage solar, not discourage solar. So what I would do is I would give dollar for dollar and encourage people, if you have room on your house, you should overproduce. You should put as many panels on your home as it allow, and we'll buy this back because this is green energy. The utilities don't want to do that because they're not profiting off of that when they do that. But if you have room and you have a house with perfect spot, we should do it because not all houses have perfect roof pitches. Not all houses face in the right direction.
Right, so.
If you want to know so that's what I would do. I would encourage homes that could do that and make it profitable for the owners or people that have farms, for solar farms, to put panels on there and encourage people to do it, but not discourage them. But we're discouraging people to overproduce. That we're actually penalizing them for it by not giving them the credits for it. As far as solar goes, you want your house facing south. By far, that is the best. You're going to get your most bang for your buck if your house faces south to put the panels. It can be on the front, side, back, doesn't matter. The south facing is going to be your best. East and west are a good second place. East or west really doesn't matter. North, there's very few homes, very few that you can put north. Normally, if you put a panel on the north side, it's not going to generate enough power to offset the cost of the panel. So if you see a design and it doesn't have it there, that's usually why it doesn't do it. And you can move a panel 10 feet and you'll see it drop in efficiency by over 50% just by sometimes moving it 10 feet. Okay. Any other questions at net metering before I move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good. If you guys got that, that is the hardest part of this entire thing. This is I won't make this a commercial about too much about us, but we're in multiple states. I would say when you're looking for a solar company, here's something you want to look for. Look at their Google reviews, look at Better Business Bureau, look at Facebook. The other key question I would ask for your solar company is make sure they're here. Like when I interviewed with multiple solar companies, because this is what I knew I wanted to do, I met the manager at a hotel lobby. I'm like, why are we here in a lobby? Because they didn't have an office here. I met another manager in a shared office, 10 by 10 office that they were sharing with 5 other companies because they weren't here, and they subcontracted out all the work. Your panels should last over 40 years. You want to make sure you have a company that can do it. Also, do they have their own employees? You know, do they have office here? Do they have a warehouse here? Their design team, installers, are they the employees of the company? Or are they going to contract it out to Bob's Roofing? I got nothing against Bob, but he may not be around in 5 years, more or less 40 years. And a number of those solar companies that I interviewed with are no longer even in the area a year later. So those are the questions I would ask and look, you know, and I would look at the reviews, you know, that, and just make sure they're employees that's all they do is install, you know, and not like, hey, yeah, I've installed panels before, and get a subcontractor. That's just my piece of advice when you're looking at different solar companies.
Jim, we had a question about what is a tier 1 panel. I assume that means it's one of the better panels.
Yeah, that's kind of how they rate it. Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, kind of like A, B, C, D as far as grading. Tier 1 is just the grade of the panel, saying, hey, it's in the top echelon of panels. And as long as it's in that tier 1, you're good. Like, you can argue, we can get in an argument over minor details of which one's better, but I personally don't care. As long as it's a tier 1 panel, you're going to be safe.
Another question about how much does one panel weigh? Now, we're looking at this picture, and there's a bunch of squares on the overall screen. So, I mean, I assume it depends on the size of the roof, and that it would determine how many squares you have. So, and I'm using a term, they call it square with when they use the term with roofing materials. So I come from the hardware business. So let's say one of those squares, how much would one of those squares weigh?
I don't have the exact weight or dimensions. I forgot what it is offhand, but I'm 6'3". The panels are probably, you know, about 5 feet, and they're about probably 2 to 3 feet wide. They're not heavy. You could easily pick one up, you know. They're not super heavy to do because they're basically glass in a wood frame. So they're not heavy. There are different size panels as well. You know, commercial grade panel will be a lot bigger. You can also get smaller panels. We pretty much, you know, use a 320 panel, and that means there's 320 little squares of solar in there. But yeah, there would be different companies that use different size panels.
Okay. Apparently the question regarding how much does one weigh it has something to do with how can the roof handle that extra weight?
So that's a great question. And one of my slides, I'll go over that, but I can address that here now. Is one of the things that we do is a site survey. So I go out and look at, you know, hey, do I see any red flags? And a lot of these we're doing via Zoom because of COVID and the weather. But at some point, we'll send a site surveyor out there. He'll take apart the electrical panel to make sure the box can handle the juice we're flowing through it. We'll take pictures of the attic. We'll measure the rafters. And we're going to make sure that an engineer and architect sign off on it that, hey, the roof can handle the panel weight and the weight of snow. So this is, and we fly a drone over the roof to look for any, you know, concerns we have. So that is all done before we even do permits. I would say the majority of the houses, I've personally never come across one where it was an issue. You get into the city where you have a house built in the 17 or 1800s, you know, and, you know, there's some wonky things going on. You know, I've heard some of the other reps were like, hey, you know, it can be an issue, you know, and usually one of two things happens. We're like, hey, this roof can handle the weight if we do X, Y, and Z. And some homeowners are like, yeah, we can do that. Or other ones will be like, wait a minute, that would just cost more than the panels. Like, I just can't do that. And we're like, you know, I'm sorry, solar's not a good fit. You know, so that has happened, but it's rare. Most modern homes, if your home's built, I would say, you know, in the 50s or above, it's just not going to be an issue for most homes.
Got a question about going back to the tier 1 panel. The question is, who grades tier 1 panels? Is it like the underwriter's laboratory or Good Housekeeping, or somebody grades the panels? Is there a universal organization that looks at the panels?
I have no idea. That is a good question. No one's ever asked me that question. I can look that up. Tier 1, who grade? My guess is, and this is my guess, and I'll look it up. Who grades them? It's probably a standard or specification. A quick Google search probably like it has to meet a certain specification is my guess, and if it meets that, it is a tier 1. But that's something I can look up and send to you, Peter, because that's got me curious.
Yeah, that'd be fine. We can put it in our newsletter, or I think that'll probably be the best way to get it out to everybody.
Yep, I'll look that up. You know, and see. I might even, if when I'm done, if you're doing some housekeeping, I might Google that real quick, and it might be able to get you the answer right away before I leave. But
Okay, I don't see any other questions. You can move on.
okay. So this is a little more specific to what we do, but it'll also be, a lot of companies are going to follow a similar process. You know, when we're talking to somebody, the one thing we do is we want to look at the main piece of information that a solar company is going to need is a copy of your energy bill, because that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at your last 12 months of usage. And then we're going to ask you, is this a fair representation of your usage going forward? So for example, if you're planning on buying an electric car or a hot tub or moving in some family members, you know, we might want to up the system. The reverse is true. If you had, like, you know, the one couple I was at, they had 3 college kids living with them that were moving out in a month. Their bill was going to go down. So we just kind of want to look at your 12-month usage and see if this is a good representation, and then we'll base our solar design based on that. And I see, Ed, you had a question?
This is Chester, amateur radio operator. Radio frequency interference. I listen to HF radio. How does your solar system affect noise on HF radio?
So we had one customer where, for the most part, if you're in an area that gets really, you know, that gets good reception, the solar panels aren't going to cause you, they shouldn't cause you any problems to what you're going to do. If you're in an area that doesn't get good reception, we had one client said they listened to NPR and they had a hard time tuning it into their radio when the panels came on. That was one customer. For them, what we kind of said is, hey, a lot of these, like, for this may not be you since you're an amateur radio person, but like, hey, NPR, you can get that on the internet radio. Like, there's other options to get that versus using an old school antenna. So for I would say the majority of people, to answer your question, it doesn't affect it. But for, you know, every now and then we've seen it affect somebody. And it usually depends on the strength of what your signal is where you are.
Okay. Then would there be a possibility, if I wanted to go solar, of having one panel installed to see what effect it would have?
I mean,
And if it does not work out right, then it'll help.
And I don't know if one panel will even tell you anything. Like, for us, we have a minimum of 10 panels for us to come out. You know, you might be able to do a do-it-yourself one panel, but I don't know if one panel would tell you anything. I think the more you have, the more, you know, that you would need. But it would be something that we would not feel comfortable guaranteeing. Like, you know, for most people, it's not an issue, but if this is really important to you, like, I wouldn't be comfortable stating that you'll never have this problem. Okay.
Okay, good enough.
We're also, now, certain solar companies just do solar. There are several companies out there that also do energy efficiencies. They'll look at the age of your AC. Can we make that more efficient? We'll look at your thermostat. Going to a smart thermostat. We do a lot of smart thermostats. Nest is who we use, but there's other good brands as well. The smart thermostat does a couple things for energy efficiencies. Nest claims it can lower your bill by up to 10%. It has a couple novelty items that are just fun and a couple energy saving items that are pretty big. The novelty item is, like, for example, I like to go to bed cold. I like to wake up warm. So when I go to bed, I just grab my phone and I just change the temperature 5 degrees. And when I wake up, I turn it up. The very cool thing about this is, after doing that for a month, the smart thermostat will just learn what I like, and it does it automatically. I don't have to do it anymore. The other advantage of the smart thermostat, because it's tied to my phone here, it knows when I'm home or not. This freaks some people out. Some people love it. But when I leave in the winter, I drop my temperature by 5 degrees. You could drop it 10, 3. You could set what you wanted to. That way I'm not heating my home to full when I'm not there. And when I come home, it heats back up. It does the reverse in AC. So you can save quite a bit on your bill by not heating it when somebody's there. Programmable thermostats can do that, but if you have a set schedule. Like, for me, I don't have a set schedule. I never know when I'm going to be home from 1 minute to the next. So it works better when I can just leave. So a smart thermostat, if you don't have one, they're pretty cool. The technology's awesome. If you have a smart home like I do, you can even operate it by your voice and just change it by your voice. So You can also look at adding insulation to your attic to make sure your home's well insulated. You know, make sure you have LED light bulbs. That is a big one. I mean, you can go down big energy efficiency, 5–10% or more by converting to LED light bulbs if you don't have it. So not only looking at solar as a solution to help your bill, but also looking at, is your home energy efficient? Utility companies offer, a lot of them do, I don't know about in your area, will offer an energy analysis. Some companies do this for free. Some of them, you know, charge $100 and they'll do, if it's free, I would take them up on it for sure, you know, energy analysis on this. Was there another question or was the hand still up from last time?
No, we did get a question about how many square feet and 10 panels. What is the cost for 10 panels split by labor and materials? Obviously, depending upon what the variables that you talked about earlier, whether you have the panels together or separated.
Yeah, the variation is too great for me to even quote a price. I can give you, just because, you know, I can give you some price ranges of what we do, but I've seen 2 identical houses in the same subdivision have a panel difference of 15 panels. I've also, you have to look at so many things, like, did they need a panel upgrade? Did they need a new roof? Did we add insulation? Did they need energy efficiencies? There, you know, how did we have to wire this? Did we have to do any trenching? There is just so much that goes involved in that quote. It takes us about 4 hours to put it together. Is about the time and effort it takes to put a custom design together. What I can tell you is this, so to anyone panels, the cheapest I've ever seen is around $10,000, okay? And we range anywhere from $10,000 to about $100,000. That is going to be the range for residential solar. It is that big of a gap, okay, of what you see. It's all over the place. It is all over the place.
On a $10,000 installation, about how long would the payback be?
Depends. Again, it depends on the house, the efficiency, the offset. Is that offset? You know, sometimes you can get a small home, 10 panels, where you're offsetting almost all of that. We have to plug in all that data into an algorithm of what is your current energy bill, how much of an offset this is, and we plug all that in to be able to calculate what all that is. It also, on the rate of return, depends on, you know, you are getting a solar tax credit, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. You also get home value, and depending on your home value, some people's payback, like if you look at the tax credit and you look at the home value, it pretty much washes it out from day one, like right away. We've seen some homes like, you know, if this system's going to cost you 20 grand, you get a tax credit, it's adding value to your home. You're even from day one before it even starts producing energy. On some of the bigger systems, you know, you're not going to get the home value out of it. You get a bigger tax credit, but your rate of return over the long term is going to be way bigger than a smaller system, but it takes longer to get, if that makes sense. Okay. The smaller systems usually give you a rate of return quicker, but the long-term effect isn't as big. I've seen people on bigger systems save over $100,000 in 25 years. But initially they're in the hole, where a system of like 10 grand, they could pretty much sell it for what they paid for it from day one, but they might only be saving, you know, $10,000, $15,000 or $20,000 over 20, 25 years, you know, in energy. Okay.
You had said that sometimes you can come out to a house and do a survey that can take 4 hours. Is there a charge for an estimate from your company?
It usually takes about an hour with the customer. So it usually takes about an hour to get the data that we need. This presentation I'm using is the exact presentation that we use. This is the very first presentation just to explain people how solar works. And we want to make sure solar does what they want it to do, because there's a lot of misconceptions, and I'm going to get into that in the next slide, of what people think solar does or what they want it to do. So before we spend 4 hours doing it, in the 4 hours, the majority of that time's on the back end. That's like on our end, behind the scenes. It's about an hour with the customer to explain solar. When we come back, it's about another hour to an hour and a half to go over all the numbers. And you know, and this, I'll just show you what this looks like. So if we decide to move forward, so this is a big if. We do the first meeting, we go over all this information, we kind of determine, hey, do we think solar is a good fit for their home? For example, I had a gentleman, he was using 20,000 kilowatts. He had a roof with all these peaks and angles and barely had room for 10 panels. I asked him why he wanted to go solar. He's like, I want to offset all of my energy bill. I'm like, that ain't going to happen. There's no way. You do not have the roof space. I can put maybe 10 panels and help you a little bit and help you go green. It'll give you a small offset. He's like, don't want it. There was no reason to do a custom design. You know, other people, you know, why do they want to go solar? And then I look at their home and I can kind of make a determination. Some I can rule out right away. Some of my visits last 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, it ain't going to do that. Nope, won't work because of this. Other ones, I try to usually set clear expectations of what that's going to be. Like people say, oh, I want to save money on my energy bill. And if the power goes out, I want to make sure I have power on. I'm like, well, we're talking about 2 entirely different things. You know, I can save you money with solar, but if you want to make sure your power doesn't go out, that's an entirely different thing that we'll get into of batteries and generators. And that's not going to save you money. That's just going to cost you money. But it gives you peace of mind to do something that you currently are acceptable to. And right now with Texas, a lot of people are like, that's worth the money. You know, math wise, batteries won't work out. The math doesn't work. It's just purely going to cost you more. But I can't put a price on what somebody's peace of mind is if their power goes out. So I can tell them in solar, I can save you money. In batteries, you know, why do you want it and what do you want to do? And I can tell you what that cost is. Like I told you right from the get-go, generators, for a size of home, you're usually looking at $15,000 to $20,000. For battery, you're probably looking $20,000 to $40,000, depending on the size of the home. You know, before you put on one panel, you can't use a little generator. You can't use a little, you know, just a little power wall. You need something big if you want to fully operate your home. It's going to be big.
Is there a trip charge for an estimate?
No. So we screen people over the phone. The couple things that we ask is, hey, do you own the home? We get calls where people don't own the home. You do have to own your home. We want to make sure you have a credit score of 650 or higher so you can get financing. And I'll go over that next. And then we go over the solar tax credit. And then if we talk to you and we think it's a good fit, we'll come out free of charge. We'll also do the custom design free of charge. You know, that's not an issue either. When you see this, this would be an example of one of the custom designs we did for a customer. You'll be able to see what it looks like, how much energy it will produce, the impact to your bill, the investment, your rate of return. It will give you everything you need to make a decision. I tell people solar is the easiest decision you'll make. It's either going to do what you want it to do and we're going to move forward, or it's not going to do what you want it to do and you're going to tell me no. Like, it's not a hard decision. I usually know. I ask, like, why do you want to go solar? What do you want out of this? And if they have an unrealistic expectation, I'll try to guide them of what to expect. And is like, will this work for you? And they're like, that's not what I want. Then there's no need for this design. If they're like, yeah, that sounds good, then we'll go ahead and do the design for them. And it's either going to work or it's not. It's not a thing that a decision, as long as you have all the data and you need numbers. We do the same presentation that I just gave you. The major difference is with the custom design is I have all their numbers plugged in here. Your carbon footprint, your energy bill, what will it be in 25 years, your home value, your offset, your rate of return. I have all those numbers. What is it going to cost? You get to see everything. And it's either going to be like, oh yeah, or no. It's a pretty simple thing, okay? If people choose to go forward, if they like it, there's a couple really good financing options with solar. This is specific not to our company, but to the bank that we use. There are different banks that do different things. You can go solar with most companies for $0 down. You can do it no money on. You're not going to have to write a check to put solar. Even if your system's $99,000, it's not going to cost you out of pocket anything. And that's a really big system. Most of them, to be honest, if you ask me to say an average home, which I dare say, usually between $30,000 and $40,000 is what is a common thing, but they're all over the place. Your interest rate right now is 2.99%. It's a fixed rate. It never goes up. There's no prepayment penalty. There's no payment due for 60 days after you install the system, and they use the system itself as collateral. One of the other incentives, and this is a big incentive, is that you can go solar for $0 down. And when you file your 2021 tax return, as long as you have taxable income, it usually needs to be $50,000 or more, then you get 26% back of the cost of solar. You get that in a check. It is your money. You can do what you want with it. You can pay off your car, your credit cards. You can go to the casino and bet on black. If you do, say hi to my wife. She works at one of them. You know, You can do whatever you want. Most people choose to put it back towards the solar, okay? And then that pays off cheaper. And if you put it back towards the solar, your payment and rate of return is usually pretty strong. You know, solar makes a really good case of, you know, of saving people money when they do that. But some people look at their total debt like, hey, if I keep the money, my payment might go up $50 above my utility bill, but I'm paying off $300 or $400 worth of payments of car, you know? So they'll make these financial decisions. The beauty part about this is you don't have to make this decision today. So if you go solar, you're like, I want to go solar. Here's what I think I'm going to do with the money. They're going to give you the payment as if you put it down. You have 18 months to put it down. If you do, the payment stays the same. If you don't, the payment will adjust to as if you didn't, and you get to see that up front. So it's a pretty cool thing. You don't have to decide that for 18 months. If you choose to put additional money down too, it'll lower your payment as well within that 18 months. I see another hand up. Any questions about the financing or custom design?
Looks like TJ Chumps has a question. Who is it at TJ Chumps?
Yes, what if you already have a gas generator, you know, as a backup for the power?
So we would want to take a look at it, get some pictures. Usually the generators people have at Home Depot aren't big enough or good enough to do what we want it to do. And so we're not comfortable hooking them up. If people really truly have a nice size generator that we're going to hook up, we're happy to, you'll have probably a few $100s in connectors that you would need, but we can hook it up to the system, no problem.
Yeah,
But I would say 9 times out of 10, probably more than that, when somebody says I have a generator, it's not big enough.
yeah, it's pretty big. It runs a shop of, you know, with 220 at the house.
Okay, well, if it does 20, it's probably big enough. What we're going to do is when we do our generators, we want to know, like when the power goes out, there's an automatic shutoff switch that's going to operate the generator automatically. So you don't have to do anything. Okay, and when the power comes back on, it automatically shuts off. And we also, it'll run every month automatically. So it just doesn't sit there as a quick test to keep it lubed up and to keep it working to make sure it's going to work.
Yeah,
so
this does all that. Yeah.
Then it would probably work. You would just probably need the connectors that we need. And what we would do is we'd take the specifications of your generator. We'd send that to our design team and say, hey, what connectors is he going to need? And, you know, we can get them, or you might have to buy them, but you're probably talking a few $100 maybe. It could get more expensive depending on the connectors. You just don't know. But if the type of generator you're talking about, you might be the rare case where, yeah, that can be connected right to the system.
If that's the case, then your savings is not having to buy a generator. On the overall design, on the overall design.
Correct. You would already have that. You would save on the solar, and then you would have that as a backup if the power goes out. Okay. And I'm going to get a little more into batteries or generators here and in just a minute. We talked about this already. This is kind of the site survey that we do. We're going to take pictures of your attic, look at the electrical panel, do a drone over your roof to make sure. We don't want to put panels on your home and then, like you said, what if it can't handle it? We want to answer all these questions ahead of time. Okay. Permits, this is probably the longest part of the entire process. In Kentucky, we're running about 1 to 3 weeks. In Ohio, you can double this. COVID has really doubled, sometimes tripled this. We have no control over it. It depends on the city you're in. If you're in an HOA, it's going to take longer. If you're in a historic district, it's going to take probably 6 months. But we have no control over this. This is the longest part of the process. But we're going to get all the necessary permits. You don't have to do any of that. I'd say, I don't know, I won't say all. There's a number of solar companies that will do this for you. Some of them, it's up to you. You got to do it on your own. To me, I would not want to deal with all this. I would want somebody that knows what they're doing. Even if it costs a few more bucks, I would not want to mess with that. Someone asked about the insulation. This gives you a good insulation video of how we do it with the plates, the rails, the panels. This is what it looks like. You also have the option of doing a ground mount. You can also, depending if you have the property and you have the space, sometimes your roof might not be a good fit. You could save money on the ground mount. Now, on a ground mount, you're going to have an expense of building. Initially, it does cost more because you have to build the system that the rails, that the panels go on, and you have to trench. So you have an upfront cost initially. However, if your house is getting poor sun, the amount of panels you need can decrease significantly, and you might need a lot less panels, so it could end up being cheaper. And we look at a design, if somebody's open to a ground mount, we'll have the engineer look at it and say, is it more or less expensive? I've seen them $7,000 cheaper by putting them on the ground, and then I've also seen them like $5,000 more for putting them on the ground. It just depends on how close it is to the house, and the most important factor is the sun. Installation for us, even on a $100,000 system, we can usually do it in a day. We might ask for 2, but usually we can knock these things out in a day because, like I said, they're not subcontractors. They're our roofers. We just knock them out. This is all they do. They can be on the front of the home, the back of the home, the side of the home. They can be on a barn, a shed. We can put them on other buildings. We've put them on multiple buildings. Wherever they're going to get the best use, that's where we'll put them. But I like the new panels that are all black. I think they look fantastic compared to the old silver ones. Me personally, I think they look really good.
I got a question about the panels. Somebody's
Sure.
asking if you represent the Tesla roof shingle panels.
No, we don't. Tesla's not in this area. The Tesla solar roof, which is actually shingles, is really cool. The cost of it is like the cost of a premium roof. So if you're going to do something like slate or one of those premier roofs, the solar roof is going to be about that cost. If you're looking at like a shingle roof or even a metal roof, that solar roof is going to be way, way more above that. I do think that price is going to come down. I do think Tesla's service, I have a Tesla car. I love it. I think Tesla's an amazing company. I love the car. I have 2 of them. Their solar is not rated the best. They've had lots of issues with their acquisition of Solar City. They're going to get it together, though. There is no doubt. Tesla is going to do amazing things with solar. Right now, I think they're struggling to put it together. But when they do, watch out. I mean, that their limitation is installation and infrastructure. They don't have the people power or the infrastructure to install it across the country. They have demand all across the country, but it's so complex to install what they do. They need a specialized contractor. And that is what's preventing them from putting that thing up. But if you have a small house, it's probably not cost effective. But if you have a premium house, premium roof that you're going to put on, and that's usually when you're going to do a new roof. If you already have a roof, it's not really cost effective to tear it off and put it on. But I am aware of it. It's pretty cool.
You had used the term PTO. To me, that means parent-teacher organization, but I'll bet it means something different to you.
Permission to operate. So,
okay.
And I was actually going to explain that here in just a minute. So here's the inspection. So the utility company is going to come out to inspect it, okay? And they're looking for 2 things when they inspect it. And so the first thing they're going to look at is there a safety shutoff switch? So here's the misconception most people have is they go, I want solar because when the power goes out, I want to be able to use it. Solar won't do that. When the power goes out, solar will shut off automatically. It has to, because you cannot feed live energy into the grid while they're working on the lines for safety of the workers. The other thing they're going to look for is the other switch, which has to be within 10 feet of the meter. Is if your house is on fire, the fire department would want to get to that switch and be able to manually shut it off, okay? Now, if you have a backup battery or a generator, you can use that to where if the electricity goes out, it'll automatically switch over to the generator automatically. And when the power comes on, it switches back. You don't have to do anything. It's pretty cool. If you have a battery backup, the cool thing about the battery is it will automatically switch over at night to power your home at night. So you're using less energy from the grid at night because you'll be using your battery, okay? So that's a pretty cool thing. You can also size these generators and batteries. Like I had one couple that said, hey, I really just need this as an emergency. I don't really think it'll happen, but if it does, I just want my fridge on and the heat on. Like I don't. And I had another couple's like, we have 5 adults here. I need to do laundry, the dishwasher. If there's a zombie apocalypse, I need to be fine. And so that's going to be a lot bigger and, and a lot more pricey. So you can price the size of them based on what you want it to do. Okay. Any questions on this?
Yep. We did have a question about the what smart thermostat do you recommend? You said your company installs Nest. Do you have any
Yeah.
other companies that that you would say are pretty good?
So I have a couple recommendations. Nest by far is my favorite, and I had Nest on my home even before, even before I start working with Solgen. I love Nest. What I would tell you is this, because it can be part of a smart home, if you're going to use a different brand, use the brand of the smart devices you're going to go with, because they will communicate better. So for example, if you have Amazon Alexa, use Ring. Ring is bought by Amazon. You can use their doorbell. You can use their thermostat. If you're going to use Apple, use something in the same family as your other smart devices so they work better together. Okay. I personally think Nest is a little better than the Ring one. It is. But if I had all Amazon products, I would probably lean more to doing something that was more compatible with those products so you don't have compatibility issues. Even though Nest might be slightly better, it may cause you more problems. Now, I do think Nest is now working with Alexa now, but last year it wasn't. So that's what I would be, is look at your other products that you're using for smart devices and do something in that family. But I think Nest by far is head and shoulders over every other smart thermostat, to be honest. It is a little more pricey, but even it's like $249, but you can often get them on sale for like $199 or $179 every now and then. You can also get little sensors with them as well. So like I can put a sensor upstairs in the bedroom or one in the bedroom. So you can put these little sensors throughout the home. And like my wife's like, I want it to be warm where I'm at. So like upstairs is usually hotter. My bedroom is naturally just colder than the rest of the house because it's not they didn't run enough ductwork. You can set the temperature to whatever room you want. Like, I don't care what the hallway is, where the thermostat is. I want the bedroom to be 75 degrees. I don't care what that makes to the rest of the house. The bedroom needs to be this. So that's another cool thing you can do with them.
We have a question here. Please elaborate on the battery backup cost and storage capacity. Tell us what you can. I know that it all depends on the house, the size of the house.
Yeah.
Demands.
So usually I'll give you an example on the small end to the bigger end. Tesla does a power wall. It's like a 5 kilowatt, just a bare minimum. It's not going to be enough to do a whole lot, but it can keep the bare minimum power on. If you get like a 10 kilowatt battery, again, this is generically speaking, depending on the size of the home and the energy, a 10 kilowatt battery will usually give you the, kind of the bare minimums. Keep the heat on, fridge. It'll do more of the basics. Okay. The 20 kilowatt is what I call, that's going to do whatever you want. For most people, that's just, you can act like business as usual. You won't even know your power's out with a 20 kilowatt for most of the time. Now, with a 20 kilowatt battery though, you do have to take into consideration what time of year it is and how long you think the power is going to be out. So for example, if it's in the summer, go crazy because every day it's going to recharge itself fully. But if it's in the winter, it's not going to get a whole lot of sun to recharge. And if you think the power is going to be out for a day or two, who cares? But if you think the power might be out for a week, then you need to conserve the energy you use so it lasts longer. Okay. So that's something you have to take into considerations with the batteries. Cost-wise on the batteries, the Tesla power walls, here's a little bit to see if you can raise our hand on this. Yeah. So you can see a price for a Tesla power wall at $7,000, but that doesn't count any of the connectors, which are a few $1,000s, and that doesn't count insulation. And when I looked at my house for Tesla power walls, I needed 4 of them. So you have to take that into consideration. Batteries though will probably range to do a 10 kilowatt to 20. You're probably looking 20 to maybe just under 40, 35,000, somewhere in that range, depending on what you want.
There was a question from the TJ Chumps.
Yeah, I'm just sort of wondering, because you're talking about not having enough light in the winter. How many hours do you recommend on the solar panels of full sun? If you're surrounded by, trees and this kind of thing, if you're only getting a couple hours of sun a day, would it be worthwhile to put solar?
So that's what we would do is we would put LiDAR on your roof, and we'd like place a panel on there, digitally in our software, and we put LiDAR, and we would just judge, is this getting enough power to justify the cost? If the answer is no, we won't do it. If the answer is yes, we'll put it on and we'll quote you a price. But it is something, if somebody has a house they're concerned, I'll usually just call like our engineer real quick and say, hey, can you run LiDAR over the roof? Is it getting enough sun to go forward? And usually within a few minutes, without doing the whole design, he could be like, yeah, this is getting enough sun. It looks good. He'll put one panel on there and kind of move it around or he'll be like, yeah, no, it's just not. We get a little surprised on trees where some houses I didn't think we could do and it was fine, and other houses I thought were fine, we couldn't do it all. So, but running LiDAR over it will usually answer that question pretty quickly, and we're happy to do that.
Edwin, did that answer your question? I guess no more questions from TH Chums right now. Okay,
I will
right
say
ahead.
this though. I will say this. Depending on what you want, if you just want an occasional, if the power goes out, your generator is going to be your cheapest best bet. If you want to be more environmentally friendly and power your house at night, your battery is your best bet. What I will tell you is what the majority of our customers do is though, they go solar without either, because battery technology is going at an incredible pace. Battery technology is expected to decrease by 50 to 60% over the next 4 or 5 years. Tesla is leading the charge in car batteries. That is transitioning to batteries for battery backups. So for people that can afford to hold off and don't need the backup immediately, that price is going to be cut in half. I mean, we just see that coming. It's inevitable. And you can save a lot of money on the backup if you're in a position where you want to wait. Some people don't want to wait. They're like, I'm not taking the chance. I want it now. I need it now. And we're happy to put them in. But when most people see the price, most people hold off on them. They want them. They're just waiting a couple years.
Okay, thank you. Go right ahead.
Okay. So moving right along, you asked what PTO is. This is PTO. This is permission to operate. Depending on your utility company, it might take a couple weeks. Once they do all the inspections, it's a rubber stamp. So as long as everything's hooked up properly and you use a good installer and you had everything inspected properly, it's a rubber stamp. It's no big deal. If you did it yourself, you could run into some problems here. But for the most part, this is with a good company, this is a pretty simple thing. Once they get that permission to operate, we come out to your house, we literally flick a switch and you're generating solar. A couple things though, this is the perfect time to start talking about solar, because by the time you install it, it's spring and you're getting the full benefit of solar all spring, summer, fall to help offset your winter bill. People are like, well, how long does it take to kick in solar? I'm like, if we start now and you install it, in spring, day one, it's producing awesome. If people wait late summer and then we're installing it like October, it ain't going to do a whole lot for a few months, to be honest, so that's probably the worst time of the year as far as getting the production out of it right away. I mean, we're happy we install it year round, but to get the full production of solar, this is the ideal time. So just kind of as a quick recap, one of the things we asked is, hey, why are you going solar? People have different reasons. The tax credit of 26%, they upped it from 22,000, what you see on this slide, is a huge incentive to go solar. The environment is a big thing of going solar. Increased assets, selling faster, the value of the home, and the energy independence. What's really interesting about this, and I'm going to give you some of my favorite answers of why people go solar, and they're not on this slide. People have different reasons. And I know you're a nonprofit, so I won't get too political, but the interesting thing is the Democrats and Republicans don't agree on a whole lot, but they agree on solar. They have different reasons. And generally what you'll see is if somebody's on the far left, they care about the environment and they want to save money. If you have somebody on the far right that doesn't care about the environment, they like the energy independence and they want to save money. So they might have different reasons for going solar, but there's a common theme. Both sides agree it saves money over time. And so actually the 26% increase happened in January while Trump was still president. Biden proposed it, Trump accepted. It was the only freaking thing them two agreed on. So solar, while you may have a stereotype in your head of the person you think goes solar, it ranges from somebody that is a tree hugging person, all the way to the person that wants to be a prepper, to everybody in between, just the average person, which may be like yourself. Solar really does appeal to all people. And it's a pretty cool thing, the people I meet a whole wide range of people. But my favorite, and I'll kind of wrap this up, and I'll answer any question. Some of my favorite answers, and these are serious answers, that I said, so what is the main reason? Why do you want to go solar? And it was the very first solar I ever sold. He's like, Jim, I'm preparing for the zombie apocalypse. And people are like, was he joking? I'm like, nope, was not joking at all. It was fun. I was thrilled to see it. We got him happy. Another one of my favorites was because it's really cool. He said a few expletives in there, which I won't do since it's being recorded. But he actually taught solar. He taught how to install it, how to make it. And he's like, I love the technology. This is fascinating for me. And one of my other favorites, I was like, so why do you want to go solar? And they were like, because of Bill Nye the Science Guy. And I'm like, really? Tell me about that. And they grabbed this book and like, we read this book and we didn't know solar was possible. We're so excited. And I said, hey, I had a cameo in his movie. How hard do you think that sale was? Like, that was probably the easiest sell I ever had. I have lots of Bill Nye stories. He's an amazing person doing amazing things for the environment. I've had a pleasure to meet him on multiple occasions. Just an absolutely fantastic person. But no matter what your reason to go solar is, I recommend, obviously I sell solar. Peter has my contact information. You can reach out to me, but even if you're not using me or our company, it'll help the environment. It'll save money no matter who you use. Most companies, it's free to check it out. I would look into it. It's free. It doesn't hurt to look into it. If it helps you, do it. If it doesn't do what you want, don't. A lot of you had questions like, I don't think my house is a good fit. You know what? Set up an appointment, have somebody look at it. Whether it's in person, whether it's Zoom, they'll be able to tell you fairly quickly if it is or not. Let a professional rule that out. I've seen people say my house isn't a good fit, and it did really well. So I would encourage you to look into it. The tax credits will go away. It will not be here much longer. It was supposed to go away this year. So it is a great time to go solar. So with that, I don't have any more unless there are any questions.
We have two questions,
Sure.
and if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to pitch in. First, if you could mention your website, your company's website.
Sure, solgenpower.com.
Good. Now, one question is, with east and or west facing roof surfaces, what is the ideal pitch, the ideal roof pitch?
You're getting a little bit into the weeds there as far as the ideal pitch. That is the engineer on looking at that. The average, all roofs aren't created equal. I would say most standard roofs are going to be good. You get into a little issue if you have some of those designer houses. I don't know if you can see my hands, that kind of go straight down like this where they're angled too much. But the average pitch for the average roof is just fine. If you have something with a really unique house, it can cause a problem, but the average roof is just fine on the pitch for them. The panels are designed and the system designed for, most roofs.
Another question, and this is more of an environmental concern for recycling in the future. What is the environmental hazard of these solar panels now?
I can't get into the specifics of that, but I can tell you this. It's kind of like, I'll equate it to like the electric car. There is a cost and energy used to produce anything, right? But yes, you're going to have a carbon footprint to create a panel, to create anything, to create a car. But in electric cars, the offset only takes a few months of use to offset any production that it used to take. Solar panels, it's 94 to 97% cleaner. Any carbon footprint it takes to do immediately is less than using coal, natural gas, or anything to power your home. Okay, I can tell you that, but I don't know what the exact carbon footprint to make a panel is.
Jim, you and I had talked about my house. I haven't called you out there yet because obviously I need a new roof. I'm into my 20 years of this current roof. There's 2 layers on. So if I put a new roof on, everything has to be taken off by code. So I'm looking at either another asphalt roof, which would be good for about 20 years, or a steel roof, which would be good for 30, maybe more years. And so it doesn't make any sense for me to put solar on my roof because I'm so close to replacing my roof. What you and I talked about that before. What options do we have? What can we do here?
So here's the neat thing. If you need upgrades on your home, like a new roof, maybe you want a bigger electrical panel because it's maxed out, you need insulation. These are all considered solar upgrades. So if you're going to do a new roof and solar at the same time, you will get that 26% tax credit on the roof, the panel, any upgrade you do in order to get solar, because you need a good roof. We don't want to put it on an old one. You will get that tax credit. So you're getting 26% off your roof if you do it at the same time, which is pretty cool. Now, it does have to be related to the solar. Somebody's, hey, can I get gutters? No, like that's not necessary for solar. But if it's something that we need to do to get solar, where you do have to be careful though, is if you have a lender involved, the lender only allows so many upgrades per kilowatt. So if you have a really tiny system and a big roof, you can't finance all of it. But the more panels you go, the more upgrades or the bigger roof they'll allow to finance it. So some roofs, I'm able to finance the whole thing, no money down. Other ones, I can finance part of it and they'll have to pay the roof elsewhere. Other people will just pay the roofer directly and not even finance it. That's an option too.
Excellent, excellent. Any other questions? We had promised Jim that we'd be done by 8:30. And I want to make sure that we have all of his questions answered. Now, he's also agreed that anybody else has any other questions after the fact, I'll email him and he'll do his best to answer them through email, and we can post that on our newsletter. And I'll be submitting it to Martin for Martin, our newsletter editor. But are there any other questions? I don't see any hands up. And I'm not looking at all the pictures, but
I don't think we have any. And Peter, feel free to give out my contact information. And
okay.
Once we get back to normal and COVID's over, people are welcome to come tour our office, see the warehouse, actually see the panels. They can pick them up, touch them. You can meet the designer. You can see them, actually doing designs on the house and how they calculate that and how they figure it out. We invite people once things get a little bit back to normal, we invite people to come, they can come see it. It's a pretty cool thing to see. And I saw one more question, last question, and then I got to go.
Don't see anything in the chat.
I saw a hand up and a wave.
Ed,
On most solar panels, the first few hours after.
Ed, it's hard to hear you, man. Get closer to the computer, please.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
The boron is absorbing electrons that fall into the hole before they can get through the depletion layer. Is that still? So if you got a 400 watt panel, it's only going to put out 360 watts.
Okay, I didn't hear all of that, but I'll try to answer what I think he asked. And if I didn't, I apologize. So the panels, your average tier 1 panel is going to operate around 20% efficiency. Some are 19 point something, some are a little over 20, but yeah, they operated about that efficiency. I'm not sure if that's what you were asking, but I couldn't hear.
No, but then after 2 hours, because they use for the N-type material, they use boron. Something to do with the boron, it soaks up the electrons before they get. So that as soon as the light hits it, the boron oxygen defect causes it to drop 10%. I don't know if they've ever corrected that. I read that in something a few years ago when I was thinking about putting it in. It's on every panel. They can't really correct it. It's just a built-in thing. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in series. You want a higher voltage, less current, so you don't have to use heavy gauge wire and pull it through. I've already wired up a 240 volt thing for my electric car, so I went through the brick. So I got an access to feed in the DC. I'll put the disconnect right there on the wall outside, so I can disconnect it, and then tie it right into the grid to the inverter, and then tie it into a 20 amp breaker. I'm only going to put like 2,000 watts at 10 amps. Well, it depends on what the open circuit voltage is. they're all gonna be in series, so it's just gonna be, and they're all gonna be the same panel. You can't mix panels when you put it in series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you know, whatever the lowest efficiency panel will determine what the others do. So I'm just gonna use all the same panels.
Yeah.
Use 5 of them. I have a hip roof.
JJ Chumps, it's hard to hear you, hard to understand you. Can you get closer to the mic?
I get over by the. Wait a minute, why don't I activate the mic here so I can hear you?
Oh, okay. I have a
Here, talk into this. Talk into this.
I have a hip roof, and one rectangle or a triangle is facing the south. That's just perfect. I can probably fit about 5 panels up there. And
I'm trying to.
I just, you know, I'm worried about going to the city of Inglewood and getting a permit. They're a pain in the neck.
Yeah, the permitting, you know, I don't handle that of it. The permitting can be an issue depending on the city and county and, you know, what they want. HOAs are the worst. You know, and some of the technical things, like I am on the outside. I am the initial contact to the customer to get their questions, but like I am not the installer. You know, I am not the engineer. I am not the architect. When it comes to those, we have experts in our company that do those things. I mean, that is not my area. So, you know, I apologize if I can't answer some of the more technical things, but we have a team of people that are great that do that. And I apologize on this last question. I couldn't hear. I don't know exactly what the question was, but I do have to go to my next appointment. Solar never rests, even if it's at night, we're still going. But it was fun to come on. I hope I was able to answer most of your questions. I hope you learned something in the process. You know, and I just encourage more people to go solar. All right. Thank
What
you,
I'm
Peter.
going to do, sure, thank you, Jim. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make available to anybody who asks. I'm not going to make it public, but I'll make it available to anybody who asks. Jim's email address and office phone number.
All right,
And,
that sounds good.
So the longer questions, he can either answer them or get to one of his engineers who might be able to answer it for you.
Sounds
Jim,
good.
thank you
All
very
right.
much.
It was a
It's been
pleasure.
Terrific.
You guys have a good evening.
Thank you. We'll see you now. Great presentation, Jim. Okay, folks. Clearly what we're going to need to do is get a microphone on a stand and a closer camera at our TJ Chumps. Bob, that's definitely one of the things that I'm going to recommend to Judy. Judy Toulour of APCUG had asked how we run our hybrid meetings. Apparently people are coming to her saying, how do you do it? And we, from a few sources, we've heard that we do one of the best hybrid meetings for APCUG as an APCUG member anyway. So, but I'm going to get my audiovisual experience in tune, and we'll be able to take care of that. But people are going to have to walk up to the microphone, and they'll have to walk up to the camera to be able to be seen. Okay, so we have some have you heards. COVID-19 vaccine appointments. You can get information about that from https://vaccine.coronavirus.ohio.gov. Also, I've noticed that both Channel 2 and Channel 7 have links to certain sites that where you could find out where you can get the virus locally. It's CVS is where most of the people here are getting their vaccines, and it might take about a half an hour of your time, so or maybe even less. So it's just parking is the biggest problem. Again, another have you heard? Nearly 30,000 Macs reportedly have been infected with a mysterious malware. This is by Alexis Benveniste and Claire Duffy of CNN Business. Nearly 30,000 Macs worldwide have been infected with a mysterious malware, according to researchers at security firm Red Canary. The issue was somewhat confounded to Red Canary researchers, who said it's not clear what the malware's goal is. In a blog post, the firm said it did not observe the malware delivering malicious, quote unquote, malicious payloads. Now, the malware, which is a company, which the company calls Silver Sparrow, does not exhibit the behaviors that come to expect from usual adware, and so often targets Mac OS systems. Tony Lambert, an intelligence analyst at Red Canary, is quoted as saying, Silver Sparrow infected 29,139 Macs in 153 counties as of February 17th, with higher concentrations reported in the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, France, Germany, according to data from Malwarebytes. While the number seems large, it's a small fraction of the millions of Macs in use around the world. For the average consumer, Lambert said, he recommends simply using a reputable antivirus or anti-malware program as a backdrop to the existing protections that Apple builds into the Mac OS operating system. And that system is known for being rather strong. Now, our April 21, you're the first to hear this, first public to hear this, our April 21 meeting will address the new Apple M1 technology. First to hear it. Google Maps will pay parking meters without you touching them. Another have you heard? This is by Aaron Carson of CNET. Google Maps will let you pay street parking and transit fares in certain cities directly through the app. Google announced last Wednesday, citing an effort to help people touch less stuff during the pandemic. Google said it's partnered with Passport and Park Mobile to let you pay parking meters from Maps. A pay for parking button will appear in Maps in areas where the feature is available. The update will also let you buy bus and subway tickets using Google Pay when getting transit directions in Maps. And in cities like San Francisco, you can get a digital Clipper card, which works with the local bus and subway systems in Maps. Then just tap your phone to the card reader and show your ticket. Third and last of the heavy herds, new twist to virtual desktop cloud computing. This is from Jack Germain of Linux Insider and also ECT News Network. The Shells platform offers the desktop as a service. Think of it as a new component to virtual cloud computing. It brings Linux distros to Windows 10 and Windows 10 to any computer, mobile device, and some game consoles via any web browser. The US-based startup went online in the first quarter of last year. Since then, CEO and founder Alex Lee has been drumming up favorable responses from businesses, casual users, and Linux developers. The cloud computing alternative to Chromebooks and aging computers is also becoming an attractive offering to schools, noted Mr. Lee. Shells are virtual desktop cloud computers accessible from any web-enabled device. The Shells platform turns idle screens into full-fledged computers capable of running all the applications necessary to work, learn, code, and create at home or on the move. For more information, see www.shells.com. And Gary Ganger tells me that TechFest videos, TechFest is over, but the TechFest videos are still available if you go to techfestdayton.org. Is there a period between TechFest and Dayton, Gary? No, I guess no. Okay, so techfestdayton.org. And if you want to see TechFest videos, DMA has some, DMA members have some nice videos there. And we think you might find it rather enlightening, entertaining, and educational. See if there's anything else. I think we've covered just about all the questions. Anybody have any questions? Any comments? While I go into one of my
Peter.
documents. Yes, Mike.
You can, another place to get the COVID vaccine appointments is go to your county health department's website. That's what I did for Greene County and got my first one already. And I think Montgomery County does it too. So we can go there, although Greene County has now announced that they're shut down the registrations for next 2 weeks or so while they're integrating their scheduling system with the Ohio schedule system. So
Yeah, I heard Ohio is getting their system together, and Ohio is pretty advanced. They've been moving pretty fast, and so I haven't been able to get a presentation. But there's Ohio has started a new web site just for data, and I think it'll be something that y'all might find interesting as soon as I could get somebody to give us a presentation on that.
secondly, the
Yeah, Mike.
this week I just found out I've been using the Google Chrome, for Gmail and stuff. They also have a Google Chrome extension for the calendar, which links automatically to the Gmail. However, they're discontinuing that calendar function because they never wanted to take it up professionally and support it. But there's another note about a replacement for it, I believe. I forget what it's called, ClickBook or something. And so that's available if people want to change over. Because it was handy having the calendar on my phone, on my computer, on tablet, wherever I want to try to go around places. And so, but it's going to be different now that they take that down. But there's a replacement that seems to be working pretty good.
So they're discontinuing the calendar that I know that's on my phone and is also on my computer, and they talk to each other.
The calendar that's a Chrome extension that plugs into your browser, yeah, that they're discontinuing.
Oh, that's a drag.
Yeah. So, but there's a replacement in the announcement about that. So.
Are they offering a replacement, or are they recommending somebody else?
There's several available. One of those they mentioned, and it's available. Yeah, I just loaded it today, and it does seem to work pretty well.
Have they given a sunset date for the calendar that we all know and love?
I don't remember. I think it's probably a few months, maybe.
Oh, well, that's good. At least we got a little bit of time. So
Yeah.
more news about this later.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike. Anything else? Okay, I don't see, I see a hand, Bruce. What's up, Bruce? For some reason, I can't hear you, man. You're not muted here. Now you're muted. Now you're not muted. Tell you what, while you figure that out, just break in, interrupt the next conversation. I have somebody at TJ Chumps on Ed's computer. The hands up, is that from a previous question or is that new? Hand up single from TJ Chumps.
I don't think anybody's here.
Well, I have an item from the newsletter.
Bruce, you might want to chat with me. Give me the question on chat, and I'll pass it on. No questions from TJ Chumps?
Well, I have a
Okay, Martin, is that Martin?
Can you hear me, Peter?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry, you'll see me looking off to one side because I'm reading off my screen. We have a long promised new feature in the February issue of the newsletter, and this is directed especially at Bob Gosticha. Are you?
I'm here.
But
Bob G. Yeah,
Bob,
Bob G's
are you?
here.
He was in the meeting, and I know he's a representative of Avast antivirus. Well, maybe he signed off.
Oh, he's
I'm
here.
here.
Oh,
He's
he
here. We
is
just
here.
got to get
Okay.
his self unmuted. I was trying to unmute you, Bob.
I unmute myself just by holding down the space bar.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Martin has a question for you or a comment for you.
No, not really a question, a comment. Go to our website and go to the newsletter section and look at the February data bus, which is the name of our newsletter. We're going to have this as a monthly feature from here on in. The reports of an Austrian outfit, you may be aware of it, AV Comparative, a nonprofit Austrian outfit modeled after the American Consumer Reports Foundation. However, whereas Consumer Reports, or CO, tests many products such as automobiles, soap, and mattresses, AV specializes in digital security software. And they have monthly reports on how effective each one. And of course, this varies month by month. But for the February issue, I got their annual ratings. And let me read what they have on Avast. A top-rated product in 2020 received an Advanced Plus award in 4 of this year's 7 tests, and an Advanced in the other 3. It also takes a joint Silver award for real-world protection and a joint Bronze award for advanced threat protection. It has a very clean, modern interface, and the setup wizard offers ideal options for both non-expert users. Now, let me tell you, however, Avast was not the product of the year for 2020. The product that got the product of the year award is Kaspersky antivirus. However, I would not put this in print, but I have seen this in print, that Kaspersky is a real person. He's a professor who teaches computer science, I think at Moscow State University. And Kaspersky is a personal friend of Vladimir Putin. So I wouldn't worry too much. I don't think any of us here are important enough. But if I ran a business, I would not use Kaspersky software because I would have my business data show up on all kinds of Iranian or Chinese or Russian intelligence services. I think that is a serious disadvantage for Kaspersky. It's a Russian company, and Professor Kaspersky is reputed to be a personal friend of Putin. I would not put that in our newsletter, but I'll say it in this informal forum. But read the whole article. You'd be interested in it, I think, and I think most of us would be. And from here on in, I will reprint the summary results. You can go to their website to get much more complete results, but the summary results of their monthly tests, which are available free. They say editors and bloggers are perfectly welcome to use their stuff as long as it's credited. So Bob, you might professionally want to look at their website and take a look at it month by month. But we will have summary results from here on in every month.
I'm aware of the report. And as far as Kaspersky goes, if you have anything to do with Uncle Sam, you cannot use their product.
That's right. That's what my son tells me. He was with the Navy until he retired recently, and he said they dumped Kaspersky software some time ago. So you're absolutely right there. So thank you. That's all I had to say. I don't want to take up, you can all go to our website, and the newsletter is available to members and non-members. So.
Thank you very much, Martin. I appreciate it. I have a chat question for our brain trust. Any suggested alternatives to using Microsoft OneDrive for sync of photos, etc., on a Samsung phone? Samsung has.
Why aren't they using Why aren't they using Google?
Yeah, you could use Google.
Google
Also, Samsung, I
Photos.
think, has its own
Yeah.
too, right?
Google Photos for your photos.
Well, you can
Hi,
save more than just Google, right?
that was my question. And the reason is Samsung is not going to support their own gallery syncing, and there's a few other services that they're stopping.
Well,
Nothing
Google,
says you can't put it onto Google Photos.
well, it's Google Drive too,
True.
so you can do more than just photos on that, right?
Yeah,
If you
Google
Okay.
if you put it in the cloud, if on Google Drive, yes.
Yeah.
But you can specifically have your photos sync to Google Photos.
Okay.
Well, there's a problem
They're
with that.
pushing us to OneDrive, so that's what I wondered.
Thank you for the question, Kathleen. I
Thanks.
appreciate it. Mike, you have a comment?
Well, yeah, there's an alternative to, I mean, the Google Photos has a problem too, because they've identified that they're going to quit the full free storage now. And in about to June, they're going to start limiting you to possibly the space that's in your Google Drive, which is 15 gigabytes. So you can't store a whole lot of photos like you used to be able to do free on Google Photos anymore. I got Amazon Prime, and they also let you have an option to upload photos if you're a paying member, but I think that may have a limit too. I had used the OneDrive storage, saving photos there, but the free OneDrive is only like 5 gigabytes, and if you're an archival old person, I can actually get 25 gigs, but there's still the limitation there. So I don't know if there's a good solution for unlimited cloud storage of your photos at the moment that you can think from your phone. I mean, we need to find out from Mrs. Geek what the solution is about unlimited storage of photos probably. Now, we can't do that in Google Photos anymore. And they do limit you to see what's in your Google Drive, the Google Photos, to some extent, they're saying. That's going to happen in June, I think.
Quite a few ways that you can go. If you have Amazon Prime, you can have unlimited storage of your files on the Amazon cloud. If you use Office 365, you have oodles and oodles of storage on OneDrive. If you happen to have a Pixel phone, you have oodles and oodles or unlimited photo storage with Google Drive. So, there are ways, and Google does give you 15 gigabytes. And for photos, 15 gigabytes is a heck of a lot of storage.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Bruce, are you back now? Can we hear you? I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you, man. Sorry about that. Now, just so you know, and you can test if you're wearing a headset, you can test your headset, both the speaker part of your headset and the microphone part of your headset, by clicking on the up arrow to the right of the mute icon at the bottom left of your screen while you're in Zoom. And you can go to audio settings, which is the bottom of that pop-up that after you click on the up arrow, and you could test to see if your mic works, and you can test your speaker. So, sorry, Bruce. We'll have to get you next time. I think unless anybody else has any questions, any other questions, I think we'll pass this on to Gladys, who's got door prizes for us. By the way, if you're not a member of DMA, you can make yourself eligible for a door prize if you become a member. Only $25 a year. It's less expensive than the NRA's membership for a year, and we don't have $1,000 suits out of it.
Here, the Checker Plus is the alternative for the Google Calendar.
What's it? What is that, Mike?
Checker Plus is for Google Calendar by Jason, somebody or other. That's the alternative they recommended One of them.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Gladys, how you doing? Do we have you? I could see you, but I can't hear you. Okay, looks like Gladys going to a different computer at TJ Chump's. Go to Ed's computer if you can.
She's coming. She's coming.
Okay.
Here we go. Can you hear me now, Peter?
I can,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. I had trouble unmuting myself. What's the problem? Okay, I've got 4 items. And I wanted to start out by saying Dave Lundy, one of our charter members, passed away some time ago. And his widow, Pat, has been trying to contact the DMA for help in donating his hardware and software. And Mark Camden has been helping her sort through this mountain of donations. So here's the first of the items that we're going to put through. It's a Kingston Media Reader. See if I can get it in there close enough. It's a USB 3.0 flash memory reader. That's one of the giveaways. That's from Dave. We have a PNY 3.0, that's a 2.0 USB flash drive, 128 gigabytes. The third item is an iHome, what they call it, a slim charge. It's a charger if you have a QI charging capacity on your phone. And the last but not least, Philips headphones. Over the year, they're Bluetooth Bass Plus. So
I think you're getting a mirror image of your things up there. If you take a look at the picture, hold up the earphone.
well, I don't know that I
Take a
can.
look up there.
I don't know that I can do anything.
No, you can't do anything.
I can't. Okay. So we're going to pull names out. Pull a name out for me.
I hope I don't pull mine out. There you go.
And you can always throw it back in. Edwin Davidson.
Come on down. You're the next.
Space Plus Bluetooth
Yeah, I've got
over
a
the ear
pair
headphones.
that I want. That are very good.
Come on. Take your pick. Somebody else wants that flash drive.
It's only a 2.0.
Come on, make your pick. We're gonna pick another name here.
You really want me to do it?
Yeah. It's either that or I do it.
Yeah, I'll do this.
Then it looks bad when I pull my name.
Looks bad when I.
All right, he took the head. We have Bob Smell.
Come on down.
Where's Bob? Unmute yourself, Bob.
I think Bob's left us.
Time
Oh,
I
there he
check,
is,
you
Bob.
can still-
Oh, there he is, Bob Smell. How you doing, Bob? What do you want?
How are you?
Okay,
What's left?
preference? Yes?
What is left?
Okay, we have the iHome Slim Charge for a QI phone.
Nope.
We have a Kingston USB 2.0 media reader. And we have a flash drive.
I'll take the flash drive.
I knew it.
Yep.
2 to go. Kathleen Canick.
Come on down.
Unmute yourself,
I see
Kathleen.
her. I see her.
Hi. I don't have an iPhone, so does that work with other, like an iPad or anything, or just with a phone? The i thing.
Oh, a charger?
Charger?
Yeah.
I think it only works with a phone.
It
Okay.
only works with phone. It may work with other phones, but it has to have the capability of laying your phone or
Right.
tablet on top of that to charge.
Okay. Then whatever the other thing was.
The flash drive reader, the flash media reader, the car flash card readers.
Media reader. Okay. Thank you.
And one last name. Pull out somebody who's got a Q iPhone. Dean Shergill.
Oh, I don't have, what's a Q?
Well, it's usually a case on your phone or built into your phone so that you can charge it just by laying it down instead of plugging it in.
I don't have one.
Let's see.
I plugged in. I plugged in.
Let's try another name. We'll try 3 and then we'll just ask for a volunteer. Let's see, Ed Skyatt.
Got an Apple?
Ed, do you think that'll work with a flip phone?
I have no idea.
Well, they can research. All right. I think we're good.
Okay. Well, we're out of time. I'm sorry I didn't get to go through the calendar, but the calendar is also on our website, and you received it. If you're a member, you received it in email as part of the flyer that Gladys sends out. I just wanted to end the meeting as promised before 9 o'clock. Does anybody else have any parting words? Well, be safe. Get your vaccine. Wear
Good
a
to
mask.
see everybody. Thank you.
Take it easy. Good to see you, Kathleen.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
coming. Bye now. See you all later.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.